Hey, editor here. This is the part 2 for Anderson Stewart. I hope that this wasn't too jarring for you, but this was an awesome interview. You definitely don't want to miss this. You just get to hear a lot more about his life experience and learn a little bit more about him. If you missed part 1, we linked it down below. So you definitely want to watch that and then catch up to hear and watch part 2. So without further ado, let's hop right in and see part 2 of Anderson Stewart.
I think we were more curious about like what kind of projects that you do outside of your job that like you enjoy that keep your passion for programming alive.
Absolutely. There's been a few little projects that I've done here and there. One in particular was a portfolio page for just different job interviews and stuff like that. That's actually what a lot of companies look for these days.
Really?
Yeah, they look for people who can either create their own, or if they use a platform like Wix or other website platforms like that, that's good too. But if you can customize your own, that's a good little bonus right there for you. Because it shows that not only did you put in the effort to study things like web development and different platforms like that, but you also took the time to develop it in the way that best describes you. It shows your personality in a more digitalized, picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
But another project was actually an AI personal voice assistant where I can talk to it, kind of like Siri or Bixby or something like that, and it performs little tasks along the way. This particular program I named it Jack. That's a little nickname I give people here and there. But Jack, as of right now, can send emails to people. It can add calendar events. It can create and edit documents. Basically different menial tasks that need to be done throughout the day, I let Jack handle. So then I can get on to the more difficult tasks of the day.
And how did you start? Like, what was the process of creating Jack?
There was a bit of research that went into it. It first started off with taking one of the Python courses here on campus. Well, online, but taught here on campus. But we got introduced to Python and some of the basics behind it and really what all is involved.
Yeah.
And then I took a machine learning course towards the end of my schooling career, and we continued using Python for that and just getting more in depth with that language. And I guess you could say I got bit by the bug. I really wanted to understand more of artificial intelligence and see if it could be done as sort of a personal tool.
Yeah.
And so I researched different ways to create something like Jack and see what was available. And there's an entire course that shows all those different tools that I mentioned. As far as sending the emails, that was something I had custom built. It wasn't provided in that curriculum. But just doing that type of research and getting more involved with the language, that just really got me going with it. It got me excited.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially because like it's tailored to what you need it to do. And so in the future, do you have like anything else that like you want to add to Jack or make him more utilized in different ways?
Absolutely. I also have different improvements that I'd love to add.
Yeah.
So as far as the calendar events, the feature for actually adding it to the calendar, I'm still trying to figure out. But right now it adds it to a log file. So there will be a list of different things that go on in the day, but I just need to figure out a way to deploy it to an actual hosting system. As far as actually things I want to add to Jack or things I want to do to improve him, I would love to deploy him to a service like Azure, so then I can host him and access him wherever I need him.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
So like a cloud-based solution?
Something like that, yeah.
That'd be cool.
Kind of like, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last one, but Microsoft has a tool that they host on Azure. It's their own sort of AI chatbot type deal. They showed it in a Visual Studio Live conference that some friends and I went to in Seattle, where you provide a question that says, hey, I'm looking for this type of course in this conference. Can you help me find it? And it'll present a list of best match to worst match.
Oh, whoa, that's really cool.
It was really exciting to see. But they host it in Azure and on their different platforms as well. And so I thought, why not put Jack on Azure as well? So he's available, so I can access him on a laptop, on my phone, here at work, wherever I need him, there he is.
Yeah, that is really cool. And so is that kind of where you got the idea of wanting to create an AI for the students? So where like their interests, they could find a major or a curriculum that fits theirs?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was something where I saw that tool in action.
Yeah.
And just to know that something like that actually exists, it inspired the idea of providing registration or course planning or even housing. Any sort of tool or service you need help with, something like that chatbot can be the best answer.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I hope that gets developed while you're still here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll be here for a while, so maybe I'll see it by my senior year or something.
Absolutely. That's the hope.
And another question is, so when you were applying for your internships and your job you have on campus, what was the technical interview process like?
That's a really good question. A lot of it had to do with the languages that they were looking for. So for example, or I guess let me backtrack just a little bit. Not only the languages they were looking for, but also how they handle certain tools like versioning, such as determining what version a NuGet package might be for C# and .NET. You basically have to determine, or what they did was they just asked me, how would you write a program to determine what is the most recent version of this NuGet package? You would take the version numbers and compare them side by side, basically to say if the numbers match, then it's the same version. If a number is greater than the previous one, so say that the new version is greater than the previous version, then that's the most recent. If not, then display that it's not the most recent version. That was one example. But another one was actually going through writing a SQL program. They had these different databases just there on paper, little printouts, because they would write the query based on what you told them. So they would ask you, how would you connect these two tables in order to retrieve this specific data? And you'd have to speak it out loud, and then they would write it to make sure they understood what you were talking about.
That's a different level.
It is. It's not something where you're just writing it out and not saying anything.
Yeah.
You have to describe it and see if they understand if you know what you're talking about.
And so in preparation for those interviews, what did you do?
Practice.
Practice?
Practice. That's by far one of the best things that can be done. Especially into different questions like that where you might not expect something like that. At least just practicing with the language, practice with different prompts. Have, if you go onto Codecademy, for example, and do the SQL certification, they have different prompts for you to follow. So then as you complete those queries, it makes sure that it understands what you're saying. Obviously, you're not speaking to it. You're not telling it to write the query. You're typing it out, but it'll display different error messages saying, you should probably fix that. Or that looks great, but maybe try something different. That's helpful. But practicing with people who may not understand the language, practice it in a way that you can explain it to them so that it's easy for anyone to understand.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because I feel like that's not only testing like your technical ability, but also being able to communicate and the problem well to someone who needs to understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of rubber duck programming?
I have. It's been a while, but I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, the concept is, I mean, you have something you can explain your code to, like a little rubber duck, and just by speaking and verbalizing that to something and trying to teach it to something else helps you understand it better. And something me and my wife do is, I mean, neither of us really know how to code yet because we're both very new. And so we're constantly like teaching each other. Through that process, we've actually found that we've progressed a lot faster than, say, I was progressing when I was trying to learn it on my own back home.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely beneficial to have somebody you can teach, like a roommate or just a friend, or even hop online with somebody, you know.
Absolutely. It is, excuse me, it is definitely helpful having that additional person. I mean, a couple coworkers and I do have rubber ducks on our desks.
Oh,
It is kind of fun
Amazing.
to have.
Yeah.
But,
I love that.
yeah, trying to explain different coding principles to, say, my parents who don't really code at all. I mean, Dad knows a little bit of coding. He did web development for a while, but in depth, like what we use here, they don't really use at all. And so explaining it to them in a way that makes sense has really helped solidify just my understanding of the languages, and it's helped me come up with a few ideas on maybe something I missed. But I would say definitely get involved in the language that you're using as much as possible. You may have crazy experiences with it. One such example was I was taking a C++ course, and I was just trying to understand what was going on. It had been years since I touched programming, so I had no idea what I was doing. But on one particular night, I had a dream about the program I was trying to write, and I saw myself just typing out the program, and there was a part in there that I had not considered before, but I wrote it in the program in the dream. And so I wrote it down the next morning, took it to class, and tried it out. It worked.
What?
I love
That's
when
amazing.
things like that happen.
There had to be a little bit of tweaking, but
Yeah.
it ran. I was really surprised that it happened, so it definitely worked.
That's amazing. I love that. I love when things just like click like that in programming. Like it just feels like a reward.
It really does.
Yeah, they say that your brain does most of its problem solving in the background. And so stepping away from a problem sometimes, taking like a 5-minute break, getting water and stuff, and then coming back, while you're doing that, while you're not thinking about it, your brain is, and it can help you. And it seems like, I mean, you had a really powerful manifestation of that in seeing your brain being like, hey, buddy, here's the, I figured it out for you.
Yeah, it's right here. Here it is.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Then I guess one of our final questions is, can you explain how the gospel and how your testimony has really helped you in your career path?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is definitely a good one. I'd say it's helped me the most to understand that this is where the Lord needs me to be. There were different types of engineering that I had encountered over the years, different types of things that piqued my interest, even outside of engineering, like finances. I love working with numbers. But just as I continued asking the Lord if this is where he needs me to be, there was an undeniable feeling that he needs me to be a software engineer. And for what reason at the time, I had no idea. I had no idea why the Lord needed me to be a software engineer, just all through that time, especially when the programming was hard. I just thought, this is crazy, what am I doing?
Right.
But continuing to rely on the Lord and continuing to ask and just understand where he would have you be, that was one of the best motivators for continuing in this position. But even just being here now, being in this type of environment where the Spirit is undeniably here, being in the Lord's campus, helping his students become better disciples of his Son, that's the ultimate mission of the staff here at BYU-I, and especially the software engineers. Though there are days we probably shouldn't use, there are days that we want to use words that we know we shouldn't, we're just so mad at the programs.
Yes.
But we understand our purpose. We understand why we're creating these programs, why we're being asked to build them. And there are days it is hard. I'll admit there are days when we wonder, is this even necessary? What's the purpose behind adding this new feature? But when we keep the Lord's purposes in mind, and when we keep the mission of making his students better disciples in mind, that's what enhances the feature. But I definitely testify that for the students who are here, they are where they need to be. This is where the Lord needs them. This is where he needs you. This is his school.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you may question, why am I here? What am I doing here? What's my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
But when you seek the Lord, when you ask him why, and you really want to know why, you put in the effort to figure out why. You continue studying, you continue praying, you continue doing your job. Then the Lord will show you.
Mm-hmm.
He may not say it directly to you. You may not have a dream about it, but he'll show you in a way that is specific to you. It'll be the most meaningful to you because you put in the effort to figure out why.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that because I feel like sometimes you go into testimony meeting hearing about how like people had like their pillars and raised, and you're like, I have not felt that before. Like, is it me? Am I doing something wrong? But I really appreciate you saying like, no, it's specific to you. Everyone's going to have their own thing, and it's not going to come in like the same way God speaks to you versus how he speaks to me. Mm-hmm. And so I really like you prompting everyone to put in their effort to find their why and why they're here, especially as we begin to understand our role as disciples of Jesus Christ and understanding that we're God's children and how we can even like look at God as a programmer, and especially during the creation.
Exactly.
And so like he understands what we're going through and he understands programming. And so you have to ask and invite him into those experiences to help get you where he needs you to be.
That's right. Yeah, if I had to describe it in a way of machine learning for those who are interested in machine learning, look at the different experiences that the Lord has given. For those who understand machine learning, there's a thing called a target and features. Mm-hmm. The target is what you're trying to make predictions based off of, and the features are your guidelines to get there. Your features are your experiences to help you understand really what can help you make predictions or help you understand what the Lord needs you to do. Use those experiences to help train your mind and tune you to the Spirit to say, okay, I've had these experiences. I know what my target needs to be in figuring out what the Lord needs me to do. So then when those unknown experiences come your way, when unknown data, I guess you could say, is put in your path, use those features, use those experiences to help you determine the target. To say, is this where the Lord needs me to be, or is it not? That's kind of the basis of how machine learning works, but we do that every single day.
Right.
We use that same tactic to figure out where the Lord needs us.
I love it.
Me? Well, I have a lot to think about, I think. I really appreciated your testimony and the things that you've shared today. You've been able to kind of open up and let students know how it is, and I just think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Me too.
We appreciate you coming here today and bearing your testimony and helping current and future software engineers or computer science majors.
I appreciate both of your time. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you.